uh, last time we had a question about API tests. How do we test the API, right? And first, I want to start with saying always look at the documentation. So, this website that I'm about to use for our testing is idamam, and this has anything related to food, recipes, food analytics data, meal planner, recipe licensing, nutrition analysis API. And the one that I'm using right now is the recipe search, right? It's under the products here, the third one from the row. And basically, here, what I want to talk about today is there was a question on API testing. So, the challenge is choosing the right parameters to test an API can be very complex. Now, APIs often have numerous different parameters, and selecting the most relevant ones for testing requires understanding their significance, potential impact on the system or the software under development, right? And the variations they can undergo. Now, as the solution to this, we could prioritize the parameters based on their criticality to the API's functionality, right? The feature or the business solution that this API is providing. Use different techniques like equivalence partitioning or boundary value analysis to select test cases that cover different parameter ranges. What does it mean? Different parameters meaning, so when we search for a recipe for a food, right? Here's the implementation notes about that. I will go ahead and zoom in. So this one talks about, this endpoint returns a list of recipes matching the provided criteria. What is the criteria? So that's exactly what the parameter is, the criteria here, search criteria. What type of recipe are we searching for? So understanding the solution that this API is providing for the business is very important. What do I mean by that? Different search criterias providing different queries as different parameters, right? When we are searching for certain information from an API, it makes it very critical for us to understand what exactly is this API trying to solve or provide. Now, here, as you can see in the notes, it says, get started by placing your search query in the queue parameter, fill in your 3 scale credentials, and press the Try It Out button at the bottom. Additionally, refine your search by using the optional parameters to specify what you are looking for. When mentioned, right, floating point values refers to the values such as blah, 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 blah. So all of these are considered the documentation about this API. Starting with this, right? This is our URL, and here's the endpoint that we are trying to test it for. Now, recipes v2, this is the endpoint part. Anything before that, this part right here, would be considered as the domain, specifically this part, right? HTTPS is just a protocol. Now, if we scroll down here, when we hit this access point, right, this URL at recipes endpoint, then what we're going to see is the structure, the model schema for the expected API's response, okay? It's in JSON format, obviously. Here we get to specify the type, response type, and under hits there will be it will be an array which contains multiple JavaScript objects and so on. So let's see. Now, given that endpoint that we're gonna hit to get the recipes information, then we need to understand what are the different parameters, what are the different search criteria for us to get some information about by using this API. Here is specifically mentioned that query text, for example, chicken, required if no other parameter is specified. See, this is what they mentioned here about the complexity of the different parameters, meaning using the right parameters to test the API that's being developed can be very complex. So understanding the requirement and the documentation of this API is very important for us. As to say here, required if no other parameter is specified. So for example, if I was to delete this, and if I don't provide anything, and if I don't provide here anything either, right? Basically, I don't select anything. And let me choose that, let me choose this. So I did not provide anything. Okay, now if I scroll, all of these are different parameter options that we can select. And now when I hit try it out, as you can see, I do get a response, but it's empty, right? Meaning there's no any information about like how many recipes did I get. Is there any link to those or any hits to that, right? As you can see here, you will have to provide the API key and the API ID. I will go ahead and change this a little later, but as you can see, this is the protocol, HTTPS, API, edamame is our domain. This is the recipes endpoint, and by default, it selects the type to be public. So we use this part specifically by creating an account in edamame.com. Okay, that's where you will see after signing up, you will get app ID and app key. We'll talk about that a little later. Now, as you can see, that was empty. So what makes it complex or critical for us to select different types of parameters? Now, as far as the parameters go, I would say, since this is the business requirement to provide different recipes given the search criteria, right? If we search for chicken, it should obviously provide us all the recipes that is available in our API about chicken recipes, right? How to cook, what are the different ingredients that we can use, where is the source coming from, if there it might even provide some images. So here I'm just going to put steak, or we can actually do fish, right? This is part of my parameter. So search criteria, if you will, query our API for the recipes that include information for fish recipes. Okay, and then app ID, obviously this is as part of our authorization. App key, these are the things that we need to provide. And ingredients, I don't have to put anything. So this could be one of the strategies for testing, could be one of the test cases, if you will, right? That we need to search for, we need to hit the API from edamame at the recipes endpoint with the query of fish. So this should provide us all the recipes that we have available in our database, or getting this information from the different APIs about the recipes which include fish in it. So without selecting any other parameters here, I am going to go ahead and hit that endpoint, try it out, and voila, there you go. See, this is we got 10,000 different recipes available. So the first one from the hits, this is the recipes list. First one we got is deep fried fish, okay? And this is the URI for the recipe with this ID, and then it includes some images, and then here it includes some, URL for the recipe HTML page. So let's try to see what that is, right? Let me see that. Okay. Okay, so basically it found information about this deep fried fish bones recipe. See, this will provide you some information. Now, if we scroll down here, these are the health labels that is used for this recipe, and then we can, the ingredient lines, ingredients that is used in this recipe, right? And the amounts of different ingredients and how many calories will it have, the total weight. All of this information is available in our API. Now, if we scroll down, we will see a different different recipe for different types of food that is available, right? So, long story short, basically selecting here different parameters will give us different results. Therefore, it is very important for us to read the documentation and understand the business logic of the API that is being developed, and also strategically picking different parameters for our testing is very important. So for example, here I want the recipes that is for cooking fish but does not include any alcohol. So this could be one of the parameters for our testing, right? And I want the cuisine type to be American. And I want the meal type for, breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner. So I want it to be for a dinner. And dish type, I don't want to select anything. So these are different parameters. We call them query parameters, right? I want a query for information about fish recipe that has these certain search criterias, okay? And now if I hit this endpoint with that parameters selected, I will get a different results. As you can see, this is our response. Now, as you can see, our first recipe is different than what we had earlier. It's tamarind fish curry recipe, and this should not include alcohol. So I could probably see here, there you go, the label that says alcohol free, and within the ingredients, if it is in scope for my testing, right? So if we say obviously from here, we understand that business logic, when we are searching for this criteria so that it doesn't include alcohol, then I will have to check in the ingredient lines that it should not include adding any alcohol to it. And neither any of these ingredients list that we are provided here should include any amount of alcohol, okay? So this could be one of the testing requirements. I hope this was helpful, and this, tutorial was provided to you by TechState. Stay tuned for more API testing or any other type of testing.